Here we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed, the television edition. I'm your host, Matt Connarton, and John Hopwood is with me as well. And it is June 7th, 2016. Don't forget, of course, we are now live every Tuesday night. So if you're seeing this and don't expect to see it, this is not one of the replays. This is the live show. We are now live Tuesday nights at 7, of course, immediately after Ward 13 with John Hopwood at 6. So we're excited. We'll probably get a lot more calls and more live viewers and more social media activity and all that good stuff. And if you missed Ward 13 with John Hopwood.
And Arnie Arneson.
And Arnie Arneson was on, and Tim,
Representative Tim Smith.
Representative Tim Smith. Of course, we'll get that up on YouTube at the same time we get this up on YouTube. And probably sometime tomorrow, and I definitely would encourage you to watch that as well. That was a lot of fun. That was a fun conversation.
It was. Arnie's great.
And I had a quick conversation with Arnie too about carrying her show, The Attitude, on IPM Nation.
No kidding.
Yeah, so that's gonna be really cool because I've been a fan of the show. You know, I don't agree with her on everything because she's pretty hard left, and I'm kind of sort of quasi libertarian, but I think she's very very she's fascinating to talk to and. Yeah, that was a really interesting. She really knows her stuff, and that was great. Now she's been on your show before, I assume, right?
No.
Oh, she's never been on before.
She usually is on Bob. She's a friend of Bob Backus, who's a state rep, and he was one of the more. He's retired now, but he's one of the more distinguished attorneys in Manchester.
Okay.
So she was frequently on her show. So it was great for me to be able to get her.
Yeah.
Because today is the day of the California and New Jersey primaries.
Yeah.
But the Associated Press buried Bernie Sanders last night.
Yeah.
Which we talked about.
Yeah, and unfortunately they both had to run. They're busy people, but would have loved for them to stick around. But
Matt, I got a question.
Yes.
I'm in a lot of pain now because of like it seems like is it vertigo or are you? You seem so much higher than me on the chair.
Here's the thing, John,
I might be slipping, folks.
I had a procedure recently where I had some additional vertebrae inserted into my back to make me taller. It's quite wonderful.
They call it the Ed Sapienza down at the CMC.
How tall is that man, Ed Sapienza?
I don't know, but when he is
a giant of a man.
On the Joe Lavassa show, he just is ramrod straight. He was in the artillery in the army.
Yeah.
And he always wears the suit. And it's always fascinating because if I wear a suit or anything, my sleeves will come down to here.
Right.
They'll go this way. The jacket will go up here. But you just watch him, and everything is completely almost a statue. But he's alive. But then he'll start sweating.
Yeah.
But he has the best posture.
He does.
But he must be about 6'4" at least.
Except when
taller than Peter White, I guess.
When there's a caller, though, I've noticed this. He'll sit up ramrod straight, but then when there's a caller, all of a sudden he's like this.
I never thought of that because he does do it like Snoopy when remember Snoopy used to play a bird of prey or something.
I think he thinks he has to look into the microphone to talk to the person on the phone. Ed's a great guy.
Poor Ed, though, that has to deal with Joe Lavassa voted to override the tax cap.
And Joe is running for executive council, apparently.
Yes, he is, against Chris Pat. Well, if he gets through the primary, we don't know. Yeah. There's supposedly somebody else that's going to run.
Yeah.
But Joe was the Register of Deeds.
The what?
He's the Hillsborough County Register of Deeds.
He is currently?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Is it the Register of Deeds or no? The Register of Probate. That is a constitutional office. It's in the Constitution, but when the Free State Tea Party coalition took over with Bill O'Brien, they did away with its pay, which was something like $60,000 a year.
Oh.
So just $100. You get $100 a year.
Yeah.
So
plus tolls.
That's right. So Joe got to go up. Gets to travel for free on the Granite State highways.
Pretty sweet. Imagine if we had a monorail he could just travel on. That's a callback to the previous show.
Monorail and a train, and maybe some hovercraft.
Yes.
Think about those up and down the Merrimack.
How great would that be? It's funny how there was a time when people thought that by now we'd have flying cars and things like that.
The 64 World's Fair in New York City, one of the last great World's Fairs, except for Expo 67.
Yeah.
They had all that stuff. And the moving sidewalks.
Yeah.
They did have a moving sidewalk in Detroit when they built the Renaissance Center, but everything was so incompetent, it never really worked. And then when they blew up, they used to have a Hudson's was the big, like what Jordan Marsh, which was taken over Macy's, is to Boston. Hudson was to Detroit, which was once a very vibrant city. So they decided, because the whole inner city decayed, to blow up the old Hudson's place. So they blew it up, and it took away the people mover too, which nobody ever used anyway.
Oh, no kidding.
But hey, that's life.
So I have a theory, John Hopwood.
Okay, let's start the show.
And you're not going to probably agree with my theory. I don't think anyone will. I think everyone will.
How do you know?
Everyone will think I'm crazy, but we'll find out.
Are you clairvoyant? Is that all those years with Norm has made you a clairvoyant? How do you know?
I don't believe so, although there was this one time when a woman called Norman Friends. And she sounded like Marge Simpson. She had a very gravelly voice. And I said to her, ma'am, are you a smoker? And she said, yes, actually I am. And I was like, who's psychic now?
Is that why you got unceremoniously expletive deleted, Ken, from Norman Friends?
No, Norm and I parted on good terms. Just 7 years is a long time. It's a long time, folks.
When you're a celebrity, folks, there's always rumors.
I know. Actually, there are people still ask him. He's told me that, are he and I mad at each other? It's like, no, I still go on the show. No, Norm and I are great friends, and actually, I owe a lot to Norm. My first television show was with Norm.
He gave you the gift of clairvoyance. So let's hear your theory.
All right. I now believe, and I'm serious about this, I now believe, and I made mention of it on your show, and everyone kind of looked at me sideways, and that's fine. I expected that.
I don't even remember my show. It was just a few minutes ago.
I know, right? Well, wait till you see the replay, or you'll be able to watch it on YouTube. It was great. I believe that either Donald Trump is a plant, or he is actively trying to lose because he's bored with the whole thing.
Oh, I agree with the second part.
Do you?
Yeah.
You think he's actively trying to lose?
Oh, yeah. He never expected this.
Right.
He is both consciously and unconsciously destroying himself.
Yes.
It'll be because of all the crackers in this country, the rednecks and the haters and everything, and the Dixiecrat Party. She'll win an Obama-like victory, about 350 to 380 electoral college votes. I don't think it's going to be a blowout like LBJ in 1964. That was the last Democratic landslide.
Well, Gary Johnson's going to take a lot of votes away from Trump.
Well, explain that ticket. Explain who Gary Johnson and who his running mate is.
So Gary Johnson, who I voted for in 2012, and I will so again. He's a Libertarian nominee, and his running mate is, of course, Bill Weld, former governor of Massachusetts, who was very. It's funny when Weld was there. I remember thinking. And this, of course, was when you had a moderate to liberal wing of the Republican Party.
Right.
I remember thinking that guy is probably about as liberal as you can possibly be and still get away with calling yourself a Republican.
Right. They call them Rockefeller Republicans.
Yeah.
They are extinct.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Where a person like John Huntsman, who would have been a formidable candidate, a Reagan-loving conservative, is considered like a communist because he believes in global warming, because he believes in science.
Right.
Right. There are no more Rockefeller Republicans.
I don't believe in climate change. I believe that it's all a giant conspiracy among liberals and the world scientists to destroy capitalism. I say that sarcastically.
Quantrails.
Oh, yes, the chemtrails, the conspiracy theorists.
Chemtrails, that's right. And your cat is do you have a cat?
2 cats.
You have a cat box on.
Yes.
Do you know that your cats are taking over your mind? But that's the subject of another show.
I do believe that, actually.
Yep. A dog, folks. Dogs are faithful.
I like dogs, but I don't want
to... And their poo-poo doesn't give you some type of parasite that takes over your...
Oh, my goodness. I like dogs, too, but I don't want to scoop anything up outside. I want it to go in the box. I'm willing to scoop it from the box to the toilet. I'm not willing to scoop things up outside and put them in baggies.
Cat, dog.
I love kitties. I love animals in general.
We have to remember, folks, a cat can put me into the emergency.
Oh, are you allergic to cats?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, severely?
I've been put into the the urgent care unit up at the Veterans Hospital because of a cat.
Wow.
Yeah.
What happened? Did you get scratched and have an allergic reaction to that? Did you get the cat scratch fever? Dun-dun-dun, cat scratch fever.
You bringing up Ted Nugent now?
No, I'm just trying to introduce more music into the show. Now that we're on at night, and we don't have the budget for a band.
Well, you need graphics back of you. And funny videos.
I know, but I don't want to
have a short attention span. It's only 5 minutes now, so you got to dazzle them with a bunch of BS.
Well, I don't want to steal your show. Because you do that. But what I like to pretend is that it's just an incredibly bad day at NORAD. That's what I like to imagine. I'm a big fan of the movie War Games.
Well, you notice I've changed the ending of my show to feed into here, but it
yes,
only works.
which
Do we
is
still
great.
go back to back like on Wednesday? I don't know the new schedule.
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm not positive either.
Well, folks, we are talking about we're going to try to use our show, leverage it in a way.
Yes,
so you can
leverage
bring
the
somebody in. They could have virtually a debate or a town hall here.
That's true.
2 hours.
That's true.
So we could actually get somebody's Jaxie right here in the studio.
Yes.
I'm so happy Arnie can. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was great. That was great.
But you're right about Trump.
So you agree then that he's
he's
trying to,
yeah.
because I was thinking about it.
It's obvious.
Here's what put it over the top for me. When he made the comment, now I don't know if you saw this, it's online. I
just saw the gorilla video.
Did you see? Okay, so he's at a rally and he's talking about, the African Americans love me. And then he points out a black guy in the crowd and says, "Look at my African American over there."
Was it actually his African American? Because there is that
might have been his
phrase
butler.
in hip hop culture that we can't use.
Yes.
N-word.
Yeah. I don't think Trump is quite that I don't think he's quite thug enough to do that, to engage in that
or
parlance.
hip hop enough, or whatever it
or
is.
street enough or something.
The last popular album I ever bought of popular music was in 1991. Zoo Station. U2.
Oh, okay.
That's the last.
You mean Zeropa?
Is that it?
Zeropa.
Is that what it's called?
Yes.
Maybe I was in Europe when I bought it.
Maybe.
It's the one they put out that they did in Germany.
Yeah.
And I hate to say, I also bought a Madonna album that year.
Oh, it's okay. It was back then. It's
that's
all right.
25 years ago.
Wow, that's a long time. So that was when I started thinking, though. I look at him, and he doesn't even say. He could have added one word and it would have been fine. He could have said, "Oh, look at my African American friend over there," or "Look at my African American sport over there." Instead, he just says, "Look at my African American over there." And I'm thinking he's either he's actively trying to sabotage himself, or he is the least self-aware person to ever run for president, for it not to occur to him how that sounds. And you know what it reminded me of? Do you remember? I think it was about 10 or 12 years ago. Remember George Allen, senator in Virginia?
The
macaca moment, where, for those who don't know, George Allen at a campaign event, he was a rising star in the Republican Party. I remember Sean Hannity saying he's the next Reagan, which I thought was ridiculous. But then, so he's at this campaign event, a guy of Indian descent shows up with a video camera at George Allen's campaign event. It was outside.
Who was the governor of Virginia, was running for Senate.
Right.
Yeah.
And he looks into the camera. He sees the guy and says, "Oh, look, someone is here from my opponent's campaign. It's Macaca. Everyone, welcome Macaca. Welcome to America, Macaca."
Which is like a Geechee dialect that means the N-word.
Right. Yeah. It's a totally racial slur.
You have to remember,
it was an incredible moment.
Virginia still was a Southern Confederate state. It's changed a lot.
Yeah.
But this man's only claim to fame was that he was a great football coach's son. That's the only. He never did a damn thing.
I didn't even know that about him.
Yeah, he's George Allen's father. It was his father. He's just some ignorant. He was like the W of Virginia.
Okay.
And Tim Kaine beat him.
Yes. Yeah.
Who might be a vice presidential pick for Hillary.
But that's what that moment reminded me of. Although, I mean, obviously it's a false equivalency. The macaca thing is much more severe. But I just remember thinking, not only is he a racist D-bag, but what does it say about this man's intellect and his apparent complete lack of common sense that it doesn't even occur to him that when somebody from his opponent's campaign is there with a video camera, that might be the worst possible moment to just go full racist and look into the camera and say something racist.
But the appeal of when my father moved to Atlanta in the 60s, I used to go down there in the 80s. I used to go to Plains, Georgia a lot, in fact. And even in the 70s, people hated the Democrats, not the Republicans down there is the party of Lincoln. And Yankees, Republicans.
Yeah.
Just think of that. People were still Democrats there. Ronald Reagan, who ran on a racist platform, I don't say he's a racist.
Well, can you clarify that when you say he ran on a racist platform? What do you mean?
Okay, number one, he beat Pat Brown in California. Pat Brown, Jerry Brown's father, who had beat Nixon decisively in '62, was running for his third or fourth term, I think fourth, and Reagan opposed him on the platform against fair housing laws. That was the issue that made Ronald Reagan governor. His opposition to fair housing.
Okay.
That blacks have. It's just not blacks. There were covenants at the times in '60s in California. You can't rent to Jews. Catholics,
Wow.
all these people.
Yeah.
L.A., until the recent surge in the Mexican-American population and Mexican population, was the only major city of the 20th century that had a dominant Protestant. That was dominant Protestant. Most places are like Catholic.
Yeah.
And so he became president. Now, he gave his inaugural speech in September, right after the convention in 1980, in Philadelphia, Mississippi, at the Mississippi State Fair, speaking about states' rights, which is a code word for segregation. Philadelphia, Mississippi, where the 3 civil rights workers were murdered and buried in an earthen dam.
Okay.
So we all knew what Ronald Reagan was talking about. First of all, Ronald Reagan was non compos mentis. He was just something, They used to have there used to be a hotel chain. I think Don Draper in that show has
Mad Men, yeah.
Sheraton.
Okay.
Where they have these like men that are like clockwork, as they say in England.
Yeah.
Dolls where they have a key in them.
Yeah.
You used to have clowns in your kid and the sick do it. It goes around.
Yeah.
And so then after they get a night's sleep at a Sheraton, they're human beings again.
Right.
Well,
right.
that was Ronald Reagan. He had there are some theories about what really, how Ronald Reagan worked.
Yeah.
Whether he had the key in his back and he just, or that a midget climbed up his expletive deleted and from 9 to 5, used like, I guess. You have people, they used to in Hollywood, when they have those big ships and the battles, like with Errol Flynn sailing around.
Yeah.
Those were actually big models the size of rowboats. And there
Yeah.
were 2 guys in there.
Yeah.
And they would paddle along, and they would operate all the cannons and the
well
sails and
oiled
everything.
to get up there.
Yeah,
I would
so
think,
one of those,
a well-oiled midget.
he's not a SAG member.
He'd probably sit on the midget.
And he could go up there and operate Ronald Reagan. And then, they just take him at night and hang him up in a closet.
Right.
If you were, Jesus Christ, the man was unbelievable.
Well, because I remember you saying you'd met him and you felt that he already had
76, he's obviously had the precursor, Alzheimer's, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
He wasn't connected.
Yeah.
And I remember being in the military and listening to a speech where it took a little while because there wasn't really there wasn't internet. I used it in the military, but it wasn't the internet.
Right, it came from the military originally.
That
right?
he gave a press conference of such startling dissonance that Gary Wills, the Pulitzer Prize-winning writer, found out that it was actual dialogue from a Brass Bancroft movie.
Really?
When Ronald Reagan was signed by 20th Century Fox, his first big break was Brass Bancroft, T-Man.
Yeah.
And because of that, all of a sudden Turner Classic Movies brought out the Brass Bancroft series.
Oh, no
and
kidding.
would show them. So the President of the United States is in a press conference talking gibberish from a movie from 1939. But he was the president of the United States, folks. And, Reagan was a great man. He deserves to be on the $20 bill. The guy was as bright as I hate to say it, because Alzheimer's runs in my family.
Oh,
and
really?
I'll probably get it, too. So I'll probably get, karma.
It was a recent breakthrough, by the way, in some research.
Well, we can talk about that another time.
Yeah.
But, the
Just some
people
good
that
news.
ran the government,
Yeah.
if Donald Trump was the president, he's not going to get anywhere near anything. The Joint Chiefs control the nukes. He's not going to get anywhere near that.
Right.
He won't. They would give him a vice president. They'd give him a treasury secretary. What do you think Reagan was? Reagan was a package that came with George H.W. Bush, whose father was Prescott Bush, a U.S. senator, Brown Brothers Harriman, one of the most prestigious white shoe investment banks on Wall Street. And they gave him Donald Reagan of Merrill Lynch. They gave him the whole package. But with George H.W. came one of the greatest in the United States, one of those people in a parliamentary system be a prime minister.
Yeah.
But here it can't be. James Baker, one of the most brilliant
Yes.
people. And he was the chief of staff. For the 4 years that he was chief of staff, Reagan got everything he wanted through Congress. Then they switched him to Treasury, and Reagan became the chief of staff, and it was the disaster starts.
Don Reagan, because
Right.
he didn't get along with Nancy, right?
He didn't get along with the kitchen cabinet. Like Mike Deaver was probably a liberal. He was there to make sure things worked.
Yeah.
And so then James Baker takes over the economy. Everything goes great. Then he becomes the Secretary of State, with he was just that type of guy. So Ronald Reagan had this package. Caspar Weinberger, you can disagree that you shouldn't spend all that money on defense, but he was a great defense secretary. The President of the United States, look at Ronald Reagan. a marionette, a doll, a wind-up thing.
Well, it's like Arnie was saying on your show. If Trump becomes president, he'll just outsource everything, which
And-
kind of sounds like the Reagan
Right.
model that you're describing.
Well, how many would you think? Look at Gerald Ford. I mean, he went to Yale Law School, but something must have happened to him. What was it? LBJ said he played too much football without a helmet.
What was? I was trying to remember it earlier. His gaffe at
Do you
the
think?
debate.
Yeah, go ahead.
What Gerald,
he told
Gerald
Judge-
Ford's gaffe? He said something about there's no
New York.
no Soviet dominance.
Oh yeah, the Soviet doesn't control the Eastern Europe.
Yeah, because I know some people think that cost him the election.
What cost him the election was when he insulted the city of New York, which was in a financial crisis, and the New York Daily News, which then had like over 2 million. Ford to New York dropped dead, and the '76 election. When I went to high school, the day after the election, they just early in the morning had found out New York had reported. It took that long for New York, and it went with Carter. He took Nelson Rockefeller, the vice president, off the ticket. But for that, he might have been president.
Yeah.
But we'll never know. But look at the people that are president. They put Gerald Ford in under that amendment.
Right.
Come on. What does it take to be president?
Yeah.
You have to win. That's the big thing.
So do you not give Reagan credit for anything? Because we did get through the Cold
Why would
War.
How would I give him credit for anything? He was non-compos mentis.
Okay.
He couldn't function.
But who then? And I'm not.
The people in the cabinet.
They got us through the Cold War, is what you're saying?
What Cold War?
Well, I mean, in terms of getting because
What
look, I was a kid.
What Cold War?
I was.
Tell me, what was the Cold War?
Well,
I'm a Cold War vet.
right, true.
I was a Sovietologist. Tell me about what Cold War?
Well, for me, it was waking up every morning worrying that today was going to be the day. I had what was probably an unhealthy preoccupation. Perhaps I still do, with the threat of Armageddon. You know.
Yeah, and if you were in the company or the corporation or whatever, you'd know it was a bunch of bull, expletive deleted, that we overstated Soviet defense spending by at least a factor of 10.
Really?
And that those missiles, I can't really tell you about that. Of course.
Yeah, don't get yourself in trouble. Although I'm
course.
desperately curious.
You know, it was ISIL. This ISIL. Come on. It's the lower ranking officers of the Revolutionary Guard, Ba'athist. They put a few fanatics at the head of it that cuts people's heads off. Why do you think they have such good military tactics and everything? And then we wind up with Saudi Arabia pumps oil to get Putin out of Syria.
Right.
And then suddenly we have one anti-ISIL militia fighting another anti-ISIL militia. One's financed by the company, the other agency, CIA, and the other by the Department of Defense.
Right.
George Orwell. He fought in the Spanish Revolution. Read Orwell. He was a brilliant man.
So,
it's all nonsense. It's all bull.
So are you saying then, because the Cold War is fascinating to me? It's
cold. The
to me, it's
Soviet
most
Union
fascinating
was tapped
history.
out. I'll tell you.
But were they tapped out sooner than?
Do you want to be
than we're
bored?
led to believe?
Do you want to be bored?
This is fascinating to me.
Seriously,
I love the
in
Cold War.
1979, The Economist ran an article about a dissident who had predicted the Soviet Union would collapse. Now, when it did, I was shocked as anybody.
Yeah.
It's just like when Nixon went to China. The Sinologist was shocked.
Yeah.
So there's always that. In 1972, in one of the economic plans, Leonid Brezhnev, in order to save the economy, proposed a liberalization of the economy where there would be the introduction of market mechanisms in the Soviet economy.
Okay.
You have market mechanisms so you can accurately gauge supply and demand. So you can accurately create the number of shoes you need.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of a free market when it isn't distorted. Supply and demand.
Right.
It gives you feedback about what you need.
Right.
And the Soviet Union was desperate. The problem with the Soviet Union was the party, CPSU, Soviet parties, the Communist Party of the Soviet Union had a monopoly on power.
Okay.
That meant a shoe factory, let's say in Minsk, is controlled by a flaming red party boss. His reason of existence is to run that factory, and his district is for himself and his apparatchiks.
Sure, you're right.
And he's going to do as many shoes as he can.
Right.
Because he is a dictator there. He
Okay.
cannot give Moscow, which I always, it's actually called Moskva. I don't know why we can't say it. And
Oh,
when people
I didn't
say
know that.
Moscow, the English pronunciation,
Yeah,
kind of,
it's leave off the
irritating.
W, yeah.
But that's just a little thing. But Moscow, he can't give Moscow any accurate information, and he's not going to either.
Right.
So the problem you face is what you've got to do with these flaming red party bosses.
Right.
Is you've got to roll back their power in order to get the factories and everything else in the economy running in a way that you can actually get information out of them
Yeah.
in order to accurately gauge supply and demand. I'm just simplifying it to that degree.
Sure, sure.
The problem is, you're a dictatorship. There's only one party.
Right.
And those bosses have power. And Brezhnev realized it was a failure to try to modernize the economy because they would have to, Moscow itself and the Communist Party, the Soviet Union itself, would have to surrender power.
Okay.
They would have to empower people, not just some friggin' hack.
Right.
Only 10% of the Soviets were in the party. You know, most
Yeah.
people were just, they were surviving like they had under
Right,
the
standing in
czars.
bread lines and trying not to
Right.
starve, yeah.
The Soviet Union wasn't Nazi Germany. It was pretty bad.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
not Nazi Germany. kind but not the great.
Yeah, yeah.
So you stop the reforms. And then you have this system where, and when I was at the Defense Language Institute, we would be taught by Russians, if there's a line, you get in it, you don't know what it's going to sell. Because maybe you can use it, maybe you can
Okay.
barter. And there'll be you'll buy a shoe that doesn't even fit you.
Yeah.
There's no markets.
Interesting.
In the era, Reagan faced a gerontocracy after Brezhnev died of these old hacks.
Yeah.
And I can't really talk about it, but Caspar Weinberger backed them down very well.
One of them came and went really, was it, what was his
it
name? Yuri
Andropov?
Andropov? Yeah.
He was a KGB.
Yeah.
But then you get a new party boss. His name's Gorbachev.
Yeah.
What does Gorbachev do? Glasnost. That means
Yep.
loosening the ties the party has, so the economy, freeing the economy from those flaming red party bosses like Yeltsin, who was
Yeah.
a gangster.
Yeah.
And so you could modernize the economy. But here's the thing. This is what Brezhnev knows. If you, in a dictatorship, if you relax the control, the Soviet Union will collapse. What happened
Right.
after Glasnost?
Soviet Union collapsed. Yep.
And the United States in, let's say, the early 90s, after the white, the attempted coup, faced this. What government do you put in the Soviet Union? You can go with the South Korean model, which was quite successful, where you have a military dictatorship, which South Korea was and it might still be. All the presidents were generals, and all of them had economic interests.
Yeah.
And a lot of people favored that because the younger generation of generals and stuff, not the old farts, the marshals, and
Right,
the 8
right.
billion friggin', star of this and that,
Yeah.
Order of Lenin this and that.
Yeah.
They felt they could deal with them. But because of that Cold War mentality, that was kind of, this is the excuse. Oh, well, we can't empower the military to take over the Soviet Union, as if they weren't
Right.
one of the major forces, as if the military in the United States isn't one of the major
Right, exactly,
forces.
yeah.
And so they went with gangsters. And a team from Harvard went over there to teach them about economics and free markets, stole $4 billion. Just
Really?
that one team. Oh, yeah. It was a free-for-all. We
Wow.
went with Yeltsin, a gangster. We looted the Soviet Union, and you basically got Putin. Because
Yeah.
people had had enough. Americans are despised now because
Putin
they
is-
associate them with the looting of the Soviet Union. That woman, I'll tell you a story about her again. Victoria,
Yeah.
who's Russian.
Yeah.
Woman, let's go. She told me what it was like then. You're starving
Yeah.
after the Soviet Union collapses, and you're into Russia and Yeltsin.
Yeah.
You're starving. She had a master's degree in economics. You have to resort to smuggling,
Yeah.
all sorts of things.
Yeltsin was kind of scary too because if I remember correctly, he was an alcoholic and
Well, he was
some
a
very.
whore
At one point, he was
and a criminal. The United States likes to deal with people like that.
And he threatened us too. I remember at one point he was talking about retargeting us, which no one took that seriously.
No, because he was a drunk.
But because he was a drunk, that kind of made it a little extra scary too.
Rather than take somebody who was competent, but you're afraid of that, so they deliberately weakened Russia, and now you've got a czar again.
Yeah.
But the point is, Ronald Reagan did nothing to collapse the Soviet Union. His outrageous defense spending didn't make ratchet them up one dime.
Okay.
They had that Afghanistan war, and it did.
Yeah.
It was a sore. It
Yeah.
bled them, but not in the way like Vietnam. But of course, they didn't have the resources. So the point is the Soviet Union was about to collapse anyways because it could not rationalize its economy. It could not produce goods, consumer goods or anything in any rational way. The only way that could have happened was by lessening the power of the Communist Party. And when it happened, it collapsed. The Soviet Union collapsed. This was all known. This is all talked about at university level. For online, people talk to each other because average people are left out of the conversation. Not that they could actually, if they could access like a research university, find out about this.
Yeah.
But your average person doesn't read foreign affairs and stuff like, or the technical press, like for the oil industry or this, that don't hedge their reporting.
Yeah.
So the idea that Ronald Reagan, it's a farce.
But is it also a farce, though? Because this is the part that I'm particularly interested in.
It was good, though, to triple defense spending and to give a subsidy not covered by the general agreement on tariffs and trade to these businesses that are giving you campaign cash. George W. Bush represented the reassertion of the old economy, particularly the war economy, after Clinton trying to move it towards more the 21st century.
Right.
War, and we got the wars. We got the wars we feared.
Yeah.
We feared. We were never supposed to get into an oil war. Look at this debacle.
Right.
It's destroying the United States is now an empire, and I don't know how much longer it can go, since basically China is using our money to give these loans to like this chemical company that's going to buy this huge Swiss company because it can get $35 billion right from the Chinese, where we would have, like Monsanto and the other company, Bayer, are maneuvering.
Yeah.
But they have to go to a market and actually pay for their capital.
Yeah.
So the Chinese, we always were fearing the Japanese nice. The Chinese
I remember that, when I was a kid, it was all about the Japanese.
rapaciousness.
Yeah.
But people like George W. Bush, they are more loyal to the Saudi royal family than they ever are to you or me or anybody beneath like the general staff and the Pentagon.
Remember that picture of he was holding hands. George W. Bush was holding hands with
he looked in
one of the
Putin's
Saudis.
eyes and saw soul.
I remember that. Yes, I looked into his soul and.
Everybody, you think these people. This is USA Incorporated.
Yeah.
You think somebody of those elites give a damn about you? They have more in common with that Chinese billionaire because they're doing business with you.
Well, that's why I've been saying lately too that
And they don't like Donald Trump, and that's why he's not going to be president.
Right. Well, I say
they like Hillary.
I wouldn't encourage anyone to join the military because when you join the military, these young people, they think they're going to fight for their country, and they're not. They're going to fight for the corporation.
Well, read Smedley Butler, War is a Racket from 1935.
Yeah.
Then we went, how many wars have we had?
Yeah, and Eisenhower warned about the military-industrial complex. And
you have to understand the increasing internationalization of the economy means that you can't subsidize industries. You have to have free trade. You can take somebody to the world, the trade court. Mm-hmm. That started my father's cousin, Lawrence Whittemore, who was a governor of the Fed in Boston. He was Ike's cabinet negotiating the first GATT.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't subsidize, like, say, computers or consumer goods because it violates international laws. But what's exempt? Defense. So you can channel hundreds of billions of dollars into defense industries.
But how?
Not violate the international trade.
Right.
So you make. Up at the Veterans Administration, they hire somebody and they have to take an expert at something else, and it's unbelievable. We need $35 billion for a fighter that will never fight,
right?
Rather than give them $1 billion up there.
Oh, of course, yeah. But okay, but on what level? I mean, when you say the Cold War was a farce, are you suggesting that the Russians were never a threat to us militarily in terms
Well,
of...
they had ICBMs, but they
Well, that's
couldn't
what I
use
mean.
them. Mutual assured destruction.
Right.
It would be suicide.
Yeah. But there are instances
You
where
have to
we came
understand
close, right?
something. Iran was been a nuclear power since 1994. Now, it didn't have the triggers, and it
Right.
doesn't have the missiles. And that's nothing I didn't learn outside of the professional press for the petroleum industry.
Yeah.
But they have been a nuclear power. They aren't fanatics. They don't want to die.
Right.
You know, the elites there don't believe the BS about their 73 virgins waiting
Right,
for them.
right, yeah.
Believe me, folks, I've heard people die.
Yeah.
The people don't want to die.
Right. Right.
You know, people don't want to die.
Right.
And they're not going to.
Yeah.
So what we're fed is just pure propaganda.
Yeah.
You are too young to remember the Church Commission when they revealed that what is the government? What is the government?
What was that? What's the Church
My God,
Commission?
Time Magazine, Henry Luce, that whole empire was so intertwined with the CIA. Cultural magazines, Partisan Review. They were all this left-wing, avant-garde cultural magazines, left-wing political magazines. As long as they were anti-Stalinist,
Yep.
which means anti-Soviet Union, they would be subsidized by the CIA.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Robbie Cauley, who was he was at Black Mountain College in North Carolina, where they had great college for, they had this great writing program. What was it called? The Black Mountain Review. He was the editor. Hugh Hefner plucked him and made him the literary editor of Playboy.
Yeah.
Because, Hugh Hefner needed culture, so he didn't get busted.
Sure. Oh, yeah,
And he had
exactly.
Robbie Cauley was a sophisticated person, a novelist too.
Yeah.
I took a course with him at Harvard. That's the time, I don't think I told you, when Derek Walcott, I was next to him. But the funny thing is, after he dies, we found out he was a CIA agent, also OSS.
Huh.
So this liberal culture, leftist and everything, it was subsidized by CIA.
Wow.
Because it was anti-Stalinist. It was anti-Soviet Union.
Okay.
Let me tell you a story about what things really are. The movie On the Waterfront. Arthur Miller, who had been a Communist Party member, although he always hedged about it, wrote the screenplay. And it didn't get made. Elia Kazan, then they took Bud Schulberg, and he wrote what we know On the Waterfront. Remember On the Waterfront, it's union corruption.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually based, if you remember the movie, Lee J. Cobb, the union boss, is actually based on Albert Anastasia's brother, who controlled the waterfront. Albert Anastasia was head of Murder Incorporated, one of the most feared mafia chieftains.
Okay.
He was the guy who
Yeah.
went to get, in a New York hotel, where he always went to get his usual shave and haircut, and then his guards just stepped. And then
okay.
he
Yeah.
got a little too ambitious.
Yeah.
But his brother ran the waterfront. But the movie is just as that. And it's a great
Yeah.
movie and everything. But what actually was happening on the waterfront? Do you know what happened? The Communist Party, under the direction of the Soviet Union, made a pact with the mafia to let the mafia control the waterfront. Why? Because they wanted to keep Harry Bridges, a communist and a wobbly, International Workers of the World, a guy
Okay.
from Australia who had a strong stevedore union, longshoreman union, in the West Coast. So strong they struck in 1935 in a famous industrial action that we never hear about.
Yeah.
They wanted to keep Harry Bridges, who's a communist, but not under Moscow's influence, out of New York.
Yeah.
So CPUSA, and what did the Soviet Union? Stalin made a deal with Hitler, right? And we got World War II. There were all sorts
Wow.
of cultural wars and stuff that are being forgotten of.
Sure.
Ronald Reagan was part of it. He was an informant for the FBI against
That I remember you
leftists.
mentioning before. Yeah.
So what is real?
Hey, let me just throw this out there. So, what about the theory some people have about Obama that he was a CIA operative?
Come on.
You don't believe that one?
Where would it come from?
I don't know.
Why would they have had it?
It's just something that's out there in the conspiracy theory.
Well, he's a Muslim.
realm.
Right, he was a Muslim born in Kenya, but somehow they managed to put in the Honolulu Reporter his
Right,
birthday. Come on. Obama doesn't have it to be in the company.
Yeah.
He's just who he is. You
Yeah.
know? Another placeholder.
Right.
His wife's formidable, though. I'd like to vote for her for president.
Yeah.
I'd vote for her for a few other things, too.
Sure. Really? Oh, you like her
Oh,
on the
she's
show?
incredibly charismatic.
Well, let's circle back around. But the Cold War
The Donald.
Fascinating.
It's all
So
a farce when you think about it.
So do you think that he never? Because is it possible that he's just basically a bored rich guy who thought it would be fun on a lark to run for president?
His brand.
Right. And never thought that it would go this far?
Didn't he run in 2012 or 2008?
No, he never ran. He
was a Democrat till 2013 or 2012, a liberal Democrat. But
he flirted with running in 2012. He gave that weird speech in Las Vegas in 2012 where he was he said, see, part of why I didn't think he was going to run this time was because it was in that speech he gave in Las Vegas in 2012 where he would say things like, I haven't made a decision, but I'm going to announce something soon, and I think you'll all be very pleased with what you hear. And then when he was talking about running this last time, he kept using that same line.
He never thought he'd last through New Hampshire. Come on.
You think
the
so?
Republican Party is so destroyed nationally with people like Ted Cruz and that the Bat Boy from Florida. It's unbelievable. Like I said, where's John Huntsman? Where are people like that?
I have something here. I don't know if you
Bat
saw this
Boy.
because we were talking about Reagan earlier. You know, Michael Reagan, the conservative of Reagan's sons, of course, is Ron Reagan, who's a liberal. But
you mean the person that never did a good damn thing in his life, and even his father didn't like him. I think he was adopted, wasn't he?
Which one?
Michael.
Michael?
Yeah, the daughter's the only one that's from the first marriage.
Yeah, because
that's Jane Wyman.
Because I know he and Ron are half brothers.
Here's a guy,
Well, you know what did you see what he said though?
No, because I think that somebody like that should best be ignored. But let's hear.
Well, he said that he's not voting for Trump, and neither would his dad.
His father would do whatever Nancy told him to do after she read the charts. You know.
Oh, that's right. She was big into astrology. Yes. And Mitch McConnell. This is another thing. Mitch McConnell. This is from HuffPost. Tells Trump to stop attacking minorities. See, this is the thing.
Why? The Republican Party realigned. We go back to Atlanta. Ronald Reagan exercised the ghost of Abraham Lincoln, made it a racist party, and then, the entire South realigned. So instead of the solid South being Democratic, it's now Republican. Trent Lott, he was a racist. He was on the committees, dedicated to keeping segregation alive.
Right. But the thing is, Trump can't win the general election with this strategy where,
why not? You never underestimate the intelligence of the American people.
Let me tell you
this
is part of my theory, though, I haven't mentioned yet. So I was thinking about it today. Trump could.
Anything can happen.
Trump could if he became, and it would be so easy to do, and he won't do it. And that's why I think he's tanking it intentionally. If Trump became the pre-presidential run Donald Trump. In other words, remember when Trump was just the celebrity? He was the guy from The Apprentice. He was the big mogul, the big real estate mogul.
He's too much into the
who
role.
Everyone kind of liked. But here's the thing,
Look at Jack Nicholson, up until then he plays Randall Patrick McMurphy.
Right.
And has his hugest success. Then he just basically, he could act when he wanted to, plays that role over and over again. He's stuck in this role now.
But
he's
he
not
could go back.
Sophisticated actor. He's not Marlon Brando.
Right.
And
but all he has to do to pivot to a general election strategy would be to go back to being the Donald Trump that everyone used to like, that people weren't scared of.
But that didn't give him any success.
But it wouldn't. But see, it would now. That's the thing. He could win that version. That version of Donald Trump with Hillary's negatives the way they are. That version of Donald Trump that everyone used to like. That version of Donald Trump, I believe, could win the general election.
Because you think you could vote for him?
No. I would still vote for Gary Johnson, but I'm saying that version of Donald Trump could unite the Republican Party, get all these high-ranking Republicans who are saying,
how could a liberal Democrat unite the Republican Party? He's a liberal Democrat.
I'm not saying ideologically. I'm just talking about in terms of temperament.
Don't you understand how dumb American people are?
I do, yes.
The man's a liberal Democrat. We were sitting, I think, I told you, he says, this guy's funded, he comes out anti-abortion. Right. He's funded more abortions than, some clinic down in New York, East Side, Lower East Side,
I don't believe for a second
the guy's a complete fraud. He's a con man.
I agree.
And Americans love to be conned.
But again, I'm not talking about
Americans are conned that believe that they vote for president.
But I'm not talking about ideology, though. I'm talking about, no, I know what you mean. But I'm talking about in temperament. If he just became that likable Donald Trump, the you're fired guy. But you know what I'm saying? he could pivot to that,
We're
but he
both
won't.
unleashed.
He's continuing to attack his own team.
You're overestimating him. He's really not much of anything. He's a mediocrity, and has luck. He's the first human being in American history that his persona was considered goodwill. So
Yeah.
in the bankruptcy of those casinos, he was allowed a position, not with any control, but a position that gave him money and some quirks, and gave him some, I think, subordinated, like, equity in it or something. He was the first person in history that his persona was considered goodwill. So it's all about his persona, his
Right.
media presence. He's the first person that
Right.
never existed before. If you went bankrupt,
Yeah.
so this is a new phenomenon. And go back to 1936. Sinclair Lewis won the Nobel Prize. It could happen. It's either it can't happen here or it could happen here. About somebody, a radio demagogue that becomes president.
Oh,
and a
really?
fascist.
Yeah.
Why do you think that fascism can't exist in America? This is a class, not Hitler type of fascist, you know,
Right.
but a Mussolini. Mussolini wasn't putting anybody in the ovens. He was putting castor oil down their throats.
But do you think so? You think this whole
This is
thing
a
is
fascist.
just to build his brand, though, because
No, this is somebody that's,
because he doesn't really want to be president, right? I mean, we agree on that. He's tanking. He has
he's
no,
afraid to be president. Well, he probably knows he can't.
but he's in a corner now because so if he can't,
Well, he's
doesn't-
ruined after this. He's through.
Well, that's the thing.
The only people he'll appeal to is the David Duke people. But
he's never heard of David Duke. Remember?
Read Bruce Caton, the first volume of his magisterial history of the Civil War, which won the Pulitzer Prize.
Yeah.
He talks about there's always been a strain in America, what do they call it, of Yahooism, of violence, of he doesn't use the word anti-intellectual, of just this crude, ignorant violence.
Yeah.
And the heroes, like, we never talked, Mike Fink was a legend, didn't exist, a riverboatman who, when he had his sad squaw that used to go with him, and when winter came in and there was no food, he actually ate her,
Oh,
but
wow.
this was a frontier of
Yeah.
violence,
Yeah.
of great violence, and of crudity.
Yeah.
That's America. We are in the East, in the Northeast. Boston, the Athens of America, is 55 miles away. Have you ever lived in Mississippi?
No.
Or Arkansas? Have you?
No.
Do you know what that's like there? Do you know what those people are like?
I don't.
Do you have any idea?
I don't intend to find out.
Was driving across the country, and she called me up from the Midwest. She says, I never knew how stupid Americans were. I said, yeah, because you know New York, you've been to Chicago,
Right.
which is a real city,
Yeah.
and you've lived in the West Coast. You live at Pebble Beach. That's America, honey. They are dumb.
Yeah.
How would you vote for Ronald Reagan if there was something wrong with you? Or George W. Bush?
Yeah.
Why do we pretend that we are something we're not? When you can, this is demonstrably true that Americans, we're not talking about all Americans,
You were being more positive recently.
but this is America. America is an empire
A
now.
couple weeks ago, you were being more positive. No, but I don't.
Yeah,
think-
that's before all the pain. Right? And how they treated me up at the Veterans Hospital.
Yeah.
It's just the system.
Yeah. No, I hear you.
People never, H.L. Mencken, never underestimate the intelligence of the American people. Never underestimate it.
Or never.
There is a
overestimate it.
saying in the siding industry, aluminum and vinyl siding.
Yeah.
It's, what was it? I really can't repeat it. But
Oh.
it really gets to...
Because your dad was a siding
Yeah.
salesman, right? Yeah.
People will eat expletive deleted off of a rusty spoon.
Yeah.
And people are always willing to buy a horse made out of horse, expletive deleted. And you go out and you sit down coming out of like college, sit down and watch these guys work somebody.
Yeah.
And it's illogical.
Yeah.
But, people are irrational.
Yeah.
People aren't rational. We have a Cro-Magnon brain. It's amazing that human beings can do what they do. Go to Chad and see what people are like. Not from their own fault.
Right.
You just wound up born in Chad.
Yeah. Yeah.
People are used as beasts of burden in China.
Yeah.
And they die on the streets.
Yeah.
And that's where they'll be. India. They'll die right on the streets. I have a friend that went to India often because he outsourced, for companies.
Sure.
He said, what was that? Slumdog Millionaire. That's Gussie. That's only they can't show you what it's really like.
Yeah.
It would revolt you.
Yeah.
And so, as horrible as that seemed, that's like 1/10 of what it's really like.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah. So,
Jeez.
what can you do? People are imperfect.
Right. All right, but we
Donald
agree.
Trump is You've never lived through anything like this, have you? But
No,
nobody has.
I never expected. I have always kind of wondered until now what would happen if someone who's kind of a mainstream celebrity outside of the realm of politics,
Ronald Reagan.
but
He was different.
But
He
in
was
my
a
mind,
governor.
right, he'd already been governor and it already was transitioning. I don't mean transitioning like the way people say today. He wasn't a transsexual, but but yeah,
Maybe that will be revealed in the next biography.
right? That would be something.
Can't libel the dead, folks.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, I'd always kind of wondered, like, what if Tom Cruise or Will Smith or somebody ran?
We'd be better off. But Matt, people have talked about this since I was in college and before.
Yeah.
What would happen? Once
Yeah.
again, Norman Mailer, Superman comes to the supermarket, 1960. Kennedy is the first movie star president, although not a real movie star.
Right, but he
slept
looked
with
like
enough.
one and carried himself like
Right.
one. Yeah,
I mean, people are people.
yeah,
Americans aren't that unique. The other countries, like in Europe, they just have a parliamentary system, and it seems to take care of them. But we have democracy at a local level, although it's often corrupted, as we see around here. So other people don't have that.
Yeah,
If you're in England, basically London tells you what to do. France, Paris.
yeah.
But in Paris, you have the best healthcare system in the world.
Oh, I didn't know that. Really?
Oh yeah, in Germany.
Really?
Germany has a $2 trillion trade surplus, paid for by us,
Wow.
subsidizing their defense. But it'll be interesting. I think he's going to collapse. But people there's so much anxiety because like we were talking on Ward 13, the white middle class is under such economic pressure. It's unbelievable, and neither party will really address that because you'd piss off Wall Street and your paymasters.
Before we're almost out of time, but I had something because we talked about that on your show. And I had something I wanted to
agree with you
say about that
about
though.
Donald Trump.
Oh yes. But I think that because I made a comment about it being part of it being perception.
Yeah.
The
all
white
politics is all
middle
perception.
class, and I feel like I understand it's gotten a lot tougher economically, and of course,
People are living on credit now, Matt.
But I still
massive
think,
credit. They didn't live on credit
I understand,
as they
yeah.
did 30 years ago.
right. But I still think though we have the best deal.
Really?
That I don't think has changed in terms of being white men. I think we have
Oh
the best deal.
yeah.
Yeah,
But,
and so
Well-
I think that and then as
But
we
like Arnie
discussed, so
said-
the white paranoia is misdirected.
They had privilege that's now going away.
Right, but I don't think it's gone, and that was my only point. It's
Well,
like,
there's different
go-
types
go-
of white privilege, and they're you can get a real lefty in here talking about white privilege that I'd laugh at.
Sure.
Having come from the Bernardville,
Absolutely.
and knowing what goes on,
Absolutely, yeah.
you'll get the cops here. You're white, they'll put the baton to you. Oh, they used to.
Right.
Chief Mara and Chief Willard have done a great job.
Oh, good, good.
And Louis Craig was a chief. He did a great job too.
Well, that's
back
good.
in the 90s.
Oh,
But,
they're not all bad.
Hey, just relax and enjoy it, man. You're an entrepreneur. That you should be making. Look at how IPM Nation's coming up now.
Yeah,
You have all these opportunities,
yeah. We've had a lot of success.
and you're going to have more. You're living in interesting times.
Yeah.
If we lived in, Jesus, like I don't know, like what was it, Rebecca of Sunnybrook? If we lived in Sunnybrook Farm, they wouldn't have IPM Nation.
That's right.
You'd just be drinking buttermilk at night after 8 hours of milking a cow and coming home, kicking the manure off your shoes, and
Yeah.
then going to bed early.
Yep.
And don't touch your wife. That's a sin.
Oh, don't want.
We're going to have fun, Matt,
Yes.
from here because these 4 electoral votes, they're going to compete for them.
Mm-hmm. That's true. All right, we got to wrap up. John, thank you so much.
And thank you.
And you're very, very fiery this week.
I think it has something to do with pain.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry that you're in pain, but I'm glad you were fiery. It makes for a good show. So we both become unleashed as this atomic explosion. And everybody, be sure to watch, if you didn't see it, this week's Ward 13 as well. You can catch the replays, or we'll get it up online on YouTube probably tomorrow. And don't forget, of course, the radio edition of Unleashed 5 nights a week on IPM Nation 2, one of our live channels on IPMNation.com. So, John Hopwood, thank you again. Thank you all for watching, and we'll talk at you later. Bye.